I get it, we all want to get faster, but we don't want to get injured. So how do you get faster? How do you do this Maffetone training? What is the best way to get the results that you want to see? Today we're going to find out, because I'm using me as a test case. Most people don't know this about the Maffetone Method way of training. I've always wondered what gives you the best gains when training using low heart rate training, aka Maffetone training, MAF training. Is it the hours that you train? Is it the distance that you go? Is it the consistency that you put in? And I think I have an answer for you after using the Maffetone method for 2+ years. There's this belief that you have to run. There is a belief that you can't start running until you build a base. So you have to walk or you have to hike. But then you also have this whole aspect of, you know, how far do I have to run before I see gains? Or is it a time thing? Like, what is it that yields some really good results? Because most people don't want to run slow. Most people are kind of like fed up after like 1 or 2 runs and they pack it in. They say, heck, this isn't for me, it's too slow. But then they run and then they get injured. And then they start the cycle of rehab all over again. And it's this constant ebb and flow of what should I do? And I'm gonna tell you, holy crap, there's so many different ways that you can perceive this. So let's go back to school. Let's go back to the beginning and learn what we need to learn about heart rate training. And what is that notorious best way to train to see the results that you want? So let me explain to you what MAF training is in about 30 seconds, starting now. It's using Dr. Phil Maffetone's training called the MAF Method. You basically take 180 minus your age, and that is going to be your MAF number, your maximum aerobic function. Now, that heart rate number that you're going to run every run of yours at should be able to yield you getting faster at the same heart rate over time. Now, there are a couple of caveats into that. If you're overweight, you have to reduce 5 beats. If you've been training for 2 or plus years and you're not injured, then you can add 5 on. Now, let me tell you straight out, I've messed around with a lot of my numbers. Sometimes I subtract, sometimes I add. Not one of them has been kind of like on the mark the whole entire time, because I also train with perceived effort. And perceived effort is also different than heart rate training, because it's like having a kid in the candy store. If the parents aren't there, the kids are gonna buy all kinds of stuff. And the same thing happens when you're a runner. When you don't have a watch on, then you just go a little crazy. Sometimes a little too crazy. Now, once you've figured out what your heart rate should be, that is going to be the number that you train at. Now, there's a lot of you out there that train just by running, and that's perfectly okay. Some of you may not even be able to run because your heart rate spikes too fast, and then you get really pissed off because you have to walk. Guess what? You don't go from grade 1 all the way to grade 6 in a year. It doesn't happen. You could start off in this classroom right behind me, and then as the years go by, you start to progress to go to all the other ones, and eventually you get to high school. Same thing with your running. If you want to see the results, you got to start off at ground zero. And if that means you have to walk, then you walk. If it means you have to hike, then you have to hike. If you can hold your heart rate in your MAF zone, in that number, if you can do that and you can run, then do it. Because that is the ultimate goal. Because in time, you will get faster at that same heart rate. Now, people will say, how long do I need to run this slow for? How long do I need to build this base before I can run faster? Look, everyone can do this for like 3 months. They can do it for 4 months, maybe 5, 6, maybe even a year. But if you do it for a period of time, you will get faster. Now, I'm gonna tell you straight out. When I did this in 2020, I didn't know all of these numbers. I didn't know what was best. All I did was I strapped on my shoes, put on my hat, put on my glasses, and I went running. Now, I didn't know where it was going to take me when I started. All I knew was this was the number I was gonna train at for 4 months, and I was gonna see what happens. And so what happened was I did get faster. I slowly worked my way up, right? So if you look at the stats, right, you look at the numbers, and I had to go back and pull these out of my training logs to actually see how I was doing. So on the screen right now, you can actually go ahead and you can see how I was progressing. You know, I would do my MAF test every single month. Now, when you do a MAF test every single month, don't expect it to always get better because your environment changes. It gets hotter, it's gonna rain, it's gonna be windy, it's gonna get cold. And as all of that changes, it changes your heart rate. Now, when I started looking at the numbers, I was like, holy Toledo, this thing works. And I made a video about it. And a lot of you may have come into my channel from that video. But then things progressed even further for the year. As 2020 progressed, I started to put in a lot of miles because I was planning on running that 50 miler. And I did. Awesome, awesome results. Don't run a 50 miler if you haven't trained for it, because oh my gosh, even with the training that I did, that was still a hard thing to do. And you have to be a little bit nuts if you're gonna go that distance. And if you're going 100 miles, that's even crazier. So as you can see, in 2020, I was running and I was doing really well. I achieved some amazing results. And when you think about it, you know, in that span of 10 months, I actually got faster by 2 minutes and 30 seconds per kilometer. And that just floored me. In that span of 10 months, I actually racked up 3,964 kilometers with a time of 469 hours. That was a lot. Now, this time round, I actually was walking. I did a lot of hiking. And because I was doing a lot of hiking and a lot of walking, it was very different than my training in 2020. So 2022 versus 2020, very different. And when I look at that, I was able to cover in those 10 months 1,944 kilometers, and the amount of time that I was out there was 434. Now, when you look at that, the amount of time that I was actually out there was just as much as it was in 2020, but I covered a lot less ground. Now, because I covered a lot less ground, you'd think, wait a minute, how much did I improve? And so when you look at the numbers here on the screen and you look at where I started and where I finished off in that 10-month period, I was 1 minute 14 seconds faster per kilometer. Now guys, this is just what it is, right? So is it the amount of distance that you run? Is it the amount of time that you're out there on your feet, right? Is it walking? Is it hiking? What is the best? And honestly, when I look at this, I'm kind of like, well, I don't really care how long I'm out there, because really there's not a whole lot of difference. The big difference comes in with, I went ahead and I put in, you know, basically another 2,000 kilometers to yield 2 minutes and 30 seconds faster. So really, it's just half as much time faster than what I was able to do this time around just by doing a lot of hiking and walking. So it's fascinating to look at. So time makes no difference. Distance seems to be the effect. If you are trying to figure out, you know, whether you're going to run, whether you're going to hike, whether you're going to walk, you're going to get different results based on how far you go. That really is the deciding factor for what I'm looking at on my side, right? So double the distance, you basically get an additional minute and 14 faster. It's pretty fascinating when you look at it. And again, this is only me. This is where I am in my journey. So these are things that, you know, a lot of people don't talk about. It's very individualized as to what your results are going to be. So if you're thinking about starting out, if you're thinking about taking up slow running, heart rate training, Maffetone Method way of training, aka MAF training, I think we can all agree that we all want to stay injury free. We all want to run a little bit faster, have a little bit of joy in our life, be able to go out and enjoy the things that we like to do. And by building an aerobic base will help with that. Nobody wants to get injured. Nobody wants to sit on the sideline and see all of our friends going out for their summer runs and enjoying their races that they're signed up for and having that big social experience. We want to be able to enjoy our sport. And so by training slowly, methodically, and building an aerobic base, it's going to allow that to happen. Now again, when you're in the summer, it's really hard to kind of focus on your heart rate because it's so flippin' hot. Our body is working overtime trying to keep ourselves cool. However, your body doesn't know the difference whether your heart rate is 140 walking or whether it's running. It doesn't matter. Your heart rate is your heart rate. But what will matter is your musculoskeletal system. That's huge because as you slowly start to run again, you will find, like I have, after being away from running for a while, yeah, your muscles are a little different, right? You're a little bit more sore. If you're enjoying the channel, please give me a like, comment, thumbs up, whatever it is, it really does help the channel. Okay, back to the story. So in conclusion, it doesn't matter if you're running, walking, or crawling, you will see improvement. Just make sure that you set your expectations because everybody is going to see different results. If you're going to take up any of this, then you want to track your results and see how you do. So my recommendation is if you want to train and build your aerobic engine, if that is something that you want to work on so that way you can build a good foundation so you can be able to run faster, then what I would recommend is watching this video next because it'll help you and guide you into all the ins and outs of how to do this. Like I always say, get out and run. See you next week.